right, good morning, everybody. All right, today we're going to review just some synthesis essay reminders. I also reattached the rubric for you. That way you can kind of refresh your memory about what we were working on right before the break. We didn't take this prompt about student technology to a complete essay. We only worked on a body paragraph. And so we're going to start brand new with a new prompt. We're working through the same skills. We're still going to outline and all that jazz. Tomorrow, be prepared to get the packet and start deconstructing all of the sources. But I'm going to talk a little bit about these reminders using the student technology prompt. So you're welcome to make this full screen. So just some things. Remember that you have to answer a prompt. For example, in the school technology prompt, it was develop a position on the most important factors. And so not all prompts are going to talk about most important factors, but there'll be something of that sort where it's not necessarily, positive or negative. It's just what are the most important things, and you have to defend that with the sources. Remember, we're not discussing pros and cons or whether it's positive or negative. It's what should we consider, right? We're not asking if technology should be used or not. That's not the point of the prompt. And same thing with, the monuments, right? It's not, should we do monuments or memorials? It's not anything like that. It's what's the most important factors that all of these different scenarios have to take into consideration. You have to develop a thesis. When possible, try to see if you can determine your thesis before reading your sources. That will help focus your reading. That way you can get through the sources much quicker because remember, you have about 15 minutes to read and annotate through all of them prior to outlining and then, of course, writing the essay. It is important that you completely and carefully read the sources, especially the ones that you plan to use, so that you don't misrepresent a source. If you don't understand it, it's better to not include it in your essay rather than trying to manipulate something that you might not understand in full context. And then that really does take away from the overall effect of your essay. Make sure you plan. The basic outline is really important, and it does have all the components of what is going to be scored in the rubric. So it's really important to consider that outline format that we worked on prior to the break, and we will practice it again this week. Without a plan, you do run the risk of losing sight of whatever prompt that you're on, and you'll tend to ramble or even rant depending upon how passionate you are about the prompt. Even though you're in a timed writing situation, you still need proper paragraphs. I would recommend for this next one that you handwrite the paper and then type it and turn it in. Because it might take you a little bit longer to type, and that's understandable. But remember, this will be a pencil and paper test. So now that we're in the second semester, I think it would be in your best interest to start handwriting things, and then you can start catching things as you're typing, any errors or things of that sort. So that way you can start being conscientious of those things as you're handwriting. Make sure you're documenting things correctly. Use quotation marks around the proportions of the text or portions of the text that are copied directly from the original source. Never, ever, ever refer to the authors by first name. In almost all of your papers in Turnitin.com, I have marked this, and I have made it explicitly clear that you will not do that. That is inappropriate. It 100% shows your immaturity style in your writing. Don't do that. It's absolutely disrespectful and inappropriate. And then document your sources according to whatever the prompt says. So either source A, B, or C, or whatever, or the author last name. Personally, I think it's better to go source A or B, C, and D just because some sources might not always have an author last name, and it gets complicated in how to parenthetically cite. So remember, you do need to use your chosen sources. You need to synthesize. That doesn't mean you need to summarize, right? You need to use them to support your opinions. Do not let the evidence dominate your essay. And if you highlight them according to the different color coding colors that we've practiced, you'll see visually how much text evidence you're using. And it should not be a large proportion of or portion, I don't know why I keep saying proportion, sorry, large portion of your body paragraphs. Simply dropping in sources, though, or vaguely referencing them is not enough. You have to prove that you understand what you read and you are using them to support your position. They should flow. They should be specific enough to where they are specifically chosen and intentional. rather than just BSing your way through it, okay? So again, the first bullet point you'll notice and the last one are very similar because this is one of the biggest things that we see with synthesis essays, in addition to summarizing, okay? All right, and then also in today's folder, I did put the rubric that we have discussed in the past. You'll notice that the thesis statement is very similar. The only thing is you're not really looking at rhetorical choices in this one, but you are presenting a defensible position. And so for the student technology prompt, it would be identifying the factors. And I think it was the same thing for the monuments prompt. So if it's asking the most important points or elements or whatever, those are going to be what you have to specifically state. So none of the thesis statements on a AP essay are ever going to be vague. Defensible means you're concretely and specifically identifying whatever it is that you were asked of in the prompt. And then of course we've gone through the row B, reporting category for commentary. Remember, be mindful of that 2 to 3 points. That is a very, very great area. And so I would, if I were you, really pay attention to the highlighted portions. And then, of course, that sophistication point. And then here are the grades. So if you know already that Friday's timed writing is going to be a major grade, and look at the score point, right? Between a 3 and a 4, it's still passing. Even a 2 is passing. But if you want to earn, an 85 or higher, which would guarantee you college credit, which should be everybody's goal, that is really where you need to look at scoring. So that's no less than a 3 on row B, absolutely earning your thesis point, and work towards that sophistication point. And that's going to be that difference between summarizing your sources or using your sources to dominate your text, all of that, right? Really specific and intentional. Okay. So for today's class on Zoom, if you missed it, we are getting into breakout rooms so that way we can talk through these reminders and talk through the rubric and figure out where we need to focus on, and just make sure we're understanding the rubric correctly, understanding what is a synthesis essay, what am I supposed to do with it, and you're going to complete this discussion board. So people who show up on Zoom today will be able to do this in class with one another. If not, you'll need to complete this on your own. But after discussing these reminders and expectations and even looking at the rubric, what is one major takeaway for you? What is the one thing or one area of focus that you have for this upcoming essay on Friday? And discuss what you plan to do to implement or plan on implementing in order to ensure your success. So if you know that you struggle with commentary, which everybody does, there's not a single person that is perfect and flawless. Maybe you want to think about, okay, in order to make sure that my commentary is specific and not more of a summarization, then I'm really going to focus on making sure my thesis really truly develops a solid defensible position, so that way I know what to explain in my body paragraphs, right? Of course, you can say that in a lot more polished way, but hopefully that is what our breakout room discussions will be there for, to flesh out all of these ideas, so that way we can have some things that we want to focus on to be able to do this discussion post entry and then to focus on for the essay this coming week. This discussion posting is a grade, so of course no less than 3 complete sentences. Please think about, this is the second semester of an AP English class. Some of you are in a new semester for college credit. If you're a dual credit student, we need to be writing that way, okay? 3 is the minimum. That's a 70, okay? So if you want a 70, 3 sentences. I'm not asking for an essay, but I'm asking for some thought, okay? All right. Have a wonderful Tuesday. Hopefully we'll see you today on Zoom, and if not, we'll see you guys back tomorrow. All right. Take care.